Hey guys, welcome back. I thought today we'd do a little update on how things are going in the garden. For those of you that have been following and watching all the previous videos, maybe you're wondering how that certain bed is growing or how that crop is coming along. So I thought I'd take you to each little piece of the farm and show you how things are progressing, or in some cases not progressing. So we're just out here by the farm stand. It's pretty empty right now. It's the end of the day. Usually it is empty. Right now I've just been filling it with garlic and zucchini. The tomatoes haven't really come on yet, and everything else we're eating before we can get it out here. And the other section of the farm stand that I have running is for starter plants. And it's looking a little bare right now, and you can see the reason for that in the previous video on potting mix. I'm in a transition right now where you can no longer sell the summer starters because it's too late in the season. So I'm moving all the summer starters to larger pots for people that don't want a garden or can't have a garden, or maybe they live in a condominium or an apartment. And so I'm putting a lot of the tomatoes and the zucchinis in pretty big 3-gallon, 4-gallon pots so that they can have these things grow on their patios and they don't have to repot them or plant them in the ground. The other bed is right here by my front door. This is the Brandywine tomato and Earliana tomato. It looks like a bit of a mess now. I just de-suckered it yesterday, so I've got to re-tie it up to the strings that go all the way up to my roof. And yeah, that's about it. That bed pretty much takes care of itself. Okay, out here is the west side of my house. I'm very rarely out here. It needs a lot of attending right now. There's 2 4x8 beds here. They grew collard greens and cauliflower through the winter, and I've since planted them with strawberries, hoping that now these beds can take care of themselves. So just waiting for the strawberries to take over the beds. And you can see my giant rosemary behind me. That's the mother plant rosemary for all the rosemary plants I have, not only for sale, but around the farm as well. And then beside those 2 4x8 beds, I have another bed that's sort of embedded into the ground. It's got a nice set of wire latticing here for it to climb up. We've got cherry tomatoes on the left. It's a Sweetie heirloom. It's fantastic. Got 1 Brandywine in the middle that's sort of flopped over. See, it needs to be tied up. And then 2 Earlianas on the side, and they all need to be pushed up and clipped in. So I looked here about a week ago, and they weren't quite big enough to reach up to the wiring. But yeah, they've grown like 16 inches in a couple of weeks, so that will be tomorrow's job. I have to do it early in the morning because this being the west side of the house, it gets smoking hot after about 1:30 in the afternoon. All right, let's head to the backyard. Well, I do have a couple beds here on the east side of the house before we get to the backyard. This bed here is a 5x3, and it's a purely ornamental bed. Yeah, it's doing okay. I need to weed around the bed, but the bed itself is looking fantastic. I've got this succulent from Arizona, brought back as a clipping, totally taken off. There's the begonias. They flower in January and February. And so I need to clip those flower heads off. And then this is the zucchini bed. So this guy's just starting to produce zucchinis again. I'll put a link to the pruning zucchini video down below. And it's Buddy over here. There's 2 zucchini plants in here. It's Buddy over here, producing some pretty large ones that probably left on the plant too long. It's okay. And then, as you've seen probably in the corner of many videos, that is the power that goes to my greenhouse. So I've since cut the power because up here I'm building a new deck that's going to come across over here. Basically, it's extend my deck 20 feet. And so when I do that, I'm going to reroute all the power and hopefully put up 2 to 3 more rain barrel systems. So I'm hoping to accomplish that this fall. So anyway, if you always wondered what that wire was and why it was sitting there, it's because I've disconnected the power to the greenhouse. Okay, so this is disaster bed number 1, 2, and 3. And so this is 12 of the 24 blueberry plants I have on the property. And so these blueberry plants were planted about 3 years ago. They've been growing fantastic. Nothing gone wrong. Picking tons and tons of blueberries every season. But the mulch has decomposed and has given way to basically grass has taken over. And it's really started to choke out the blueberry plants. Oh, you can see that one's not doing so well. A couple of them I've already taken out. And these ones are doing okay, but you can see the grass. It's just totally choking them out. So, unfortunately, my big fall project is going to be to dig all 12 blueberry plants out of here, put them into big pots, probably going to put them into 4 to 6 gallon pots, and then get a new location for blueberries. And I'll probably convert this over to more strawberries. Speaking of strawberries, I've got 1, 2, 3 2x8 strawberry beds. So that's 48 square feet of strawberries growing. You've also seen the strawberries on the deck. Yeah, we've got lots and lots of strawberries. They're doing fantastic. Other than the one bed by the greenhouse, I converted these all to a variety called Fresca. It's a fantastic ever-bearing producer. Basically, I had 4 or 5 varieties of strawberries here over the last 6 years. I've gotten rid of them all, and I've just been clipping runners off of this Fresca variety. Fantastic. It's the best one I've ever grown. So yeah, they're doing good. You know, producing tons of strawberries. These guys are just loaded. You know, the beds pretty much take care of themselves. Okay, so right beside these strawberry beds is my Buffalo Blue grape plant. So this is only its 2nd year in the ground, and so I didn't expect it to produce anything this year. You know, talking to my buddy who's a wine grower, he says they don't expect anything till year 7. So it's pretty happy to get little grapes. He told me just to cut them off because, you know, you want the plant to put the growth, you know, back into the shoots, and you get more next year. But I don't know. I thought it makes for some pretty cool videos to have grapes. So I kept 3 clusters in total. So the plan is for it to grow up and around here. And then beside the grape plant is another mother rosemary plant, 2 actually. So it's doing great. It's got a bit of grass in there that I thought the rosemary would outcompete, but they're kind of just living together. So got to go through and cut all that grass down. Beside it is the 2x8 Romas. Now I had a problem with one of the Romas in the middle. I think actually the dog stepped on it and snapped the main branch off. Anyway, it wasn't doing well. It started getting some pests on it. A little bit of aphids, which I haven't really seen in like 2 years. So I just clipped it off, no-till style, and took it right out of there. So these 2 cherry tomatoes totally loved it because they were getting shaded out. Yeah, so the big cherry tomatoes are all still behind there in their buckets. Growing big, loaded with cherry tomatoes. Yeah. So So move over. There's the gate to the greenhouse. Here's another 2x8 Roma tomato bed. You'll remember this bed from the lasagna gardening video, which I'll link down below. It also made an appearance in the weeding video because I mulched with the weeds, which you can see have completely dried up. Yep. So I need to throw a bit more mulch on there, but all in all, that bed is doing fantastic. These 4 beds along the west fence obviously don't need any introduction. These are the lettuce beds. They've been in quite a few, probably the last 8 videos they've been featured, just because what we're talking about, what seems to be growing in these beds, just because what we've been talking about, what I've been trying to show in my videos, these beds have just been fantastic demonstration areas. So let's have a quick look at them before we hit 2 more 2x8 beds, and then we'll go inside the gardening circle before hitting the greenhouse. Oh, there's the compost there. Everything's going smoothly, as it usually does. So here's the mesclun bed, which you can remember. There is the onions that I planted. So I think that day, we planted 39, and 37 have took, which is pretty amazing because parts of the soil was dry and it was really, really hot out. So I thought we were going to lose some of them, but 37 have took, and they're all growing great. So mesclun bed, basil bed with the small zucchini and the large zucchini volunteer. So, you know, just in that video 2 weeks ago, it was maybe a third this size. And it's already got female flowers with the zucchini on it. Alright, here's some more of the green onions. So this is the green leaf bed. It is growing faster than I can cut it down, so we're pretty much having salad every night. Good stuff. And here's its cousin, the red leaf lettuce bed, that is slowly being taken over by red Russian kale. Wouldn't have thought that. It's been really hot this summer, so I don't know. I find it very, very hard to cut down kale plants. At the same time, I'm kind of sick of all the kale that we had all winter and spring, and I really want some red leaf lettuce. So I'm conflicted. Okay, so we got 2 more 2x8 beds here. This is the spaghetti squash, and there was a few Black Beauty zucchinis in here. As you can see, this bed is dying off. This was from the overproduction video, where these plants produce more than they could handle. And so I am waiting for them to produce their last spaghetti squashes so I can harvest off this bed and then quickly get a crop in here before the fall garlic goes in. And it being the 1st of August now, you know, I've got about 2 months. So this has got to happen quick. Yeah, I rarely show these 2 beds here. So this is a 2x8 and a 2x4 bed butted up against each other. And this is a set of raspberry bushes. So I only put them in last year. I didn't expect to get much production. What I have got has been very tiny, but very tasty. So all I'm looking at is to produce more procanes, as many as I can. I'm going to mulch it heavily in the winter, and then next year is going to be the big raspberry year. Can't wait. Okay, so this is the gardening circle. This is where all the action used to happen. Lately, these beds have just become test beds for me to sort of experiment with gardening methods, seeding methods, plant varieties. Basically, it's just become a big test area for new farming practices. So it's hard to see. This is where I need a drone. but it's essentially four 4x8 beds all in a circle. And so up here we've got zucchinis and 3 types of tomatoes. This bed here is Romas and Starfire tomatoes. This bed in front of us is zucchini, Romas, and chard. This bed here is essentially all weeds, but that was a seed bed for carrots and beets, which, you know, we pulled quite a bit out of, but again, starter plants is where it's at. I'll link the video down below to where I debate starters versus seeds, and starters wins almost every time. There's my little fish pond right there. Pump isn't working right now. Switching it over to solar now that I've cut the power, but water comes through the column and splashes down over top. It's actually really cool. And then beside the greenhouse is the 2x6 beds with peppers along the back and cantaloupe along the front. And then if we go to the next one, peppers along the back and watermelon out the front. Good stuff. Now beside there, we've got another bucket pepper plant, which is growing just as well as the stuff in the beds. And then beside that, at the front of the greenhouse, is, now this is a really cool strawberry plant. It's got, you can see that, it's got fuchsia flowers instead of the creamy white flowers. Now this variety here is called Toscana, and it produces the tastiest strawberries you've ever had. Just unbelievable. But it doesn't send out very many runners, so I haven't been able to propagate from it. Now I do have rooting hormone, so I can take some shoots off, but I really wanted to get this bed established first. I did this from seed, and this is only its 3rd year, so I'm just babying it along before I start hacking it apart. Okay, and lastly, we have what I like to call the disaster zone, which is my greenhouse in the middle of the summer. It's the absolute worst because, you know, after the speedling trays get moved onto the 4-inch pots, stuff just gets tossed aside. You know, as you can see, there's shelves all the way up to the roof. On this side, there's shelves even higher that I need a ladder to get up to those shelves. When it's running, this greenhouse is a highly, highly functioning machine. But, you know, by this time in the summer, I'm not in here very much, and stuff does get neglected. But that's okay, because every September, late September, I come in and I clean it all out, and we start all over again. So I'm not too worried. So, south side of the greenhouse, we've got our 3 tomato plants in our 3 beds. Now these beds are 1x5s. There's 3 of them. And so there's 3 tomato plants in each one. This one has 3 Brandywine. The one beside it has 3 Earliana. And the one beside that one, which is the one that's producing the most, has 3 Earliana as well. Now I haven't figured out why this bed is producing more. The only thing that's different with it is that I've grown a cover crop on the bottom. And now the cover crop isn't even doing that well, but it's a cover crop of basil. You can see it in here. So that's the only difference. But for some reason, this strawberry plant has just gone booming ahead. Okay. Then on the north side of the greenhouse, I've got 2 1x7 beds, and they've all got various tomatoes growing up to the ceiling. Most of them are over 6 feet tall. This guy right here, I would say he's probably 8 feet tall. And this is another sweetie. So growing pretty good. Super pleased with those. And there's another bed in behind there. And usually I plant that bed first because it's north of this bed. So it needs to crawl up and get the sunlight before this one shades it out. I planted them at the same time. We'll see how that goes. But it's also got a big sweetie going up about 8 feet tall. So as long as that plant makes it, I'll be happy. Because those sweeties produce strings and strings of about 30 cherry tomatoes. Can't beat it. And of course, we have our infamous pumpkin volunteer that's growing. Here's about a 5-foot vine there. And then out the top here, we've got another vine that's crawling amongst the shelving. And it has produced a flower with a pumpkin on it. So we know we're going to get at least one pumpkin off this guy. It's literally just wreaking havoc on this bed, but it's too cool to cut down, so we're going to leave it. And then the last thing here, which you've seen in many of the videos, is the basil. And so I just cropped this about 2 weeks ago, and it just keeps coming back. So you can see some of the earlier videos from a month ago where I had essentially just put the plugs in, and it's booming ahead. Booming ahead. So this is actually a pretty cool little set of 5 beds here. I used to grow aloe. I had 5 big aloe plants in here, but I found that we just didn't use it. It was very hard to get offshoots to sell, so I wasn't really making money on it. It was a good conversation piece, you know, when I had clients to come buy plants or beds and whatnot, but I just felt it wasn't being productive, so now I turn it into a basil bed in the spring, summer, and in the fall, I just grow lettuces and spinaches, because the greenhouse stays quite warm. So that's essentially it. That's what's growing on the farm right now. It's the first week of August. We've got about 6 weeks left of hardcore summer growing. I'm starting my fall starters probably this weekend. So things will be changing pretty rapidly here on the farm. And I'm always excited about the transition from summer to fall. You know, most gardeners and most of the industry is all about the spring, but not for me, because I know the potential of what I can grow here in the Pacific Northwest in the fall. So thanks for watching, guys. Thanks for letting me show off my garden a little bit. Thanks for letting me rant about the stuff that isn't working. I always appreciate the questions and comments that you guys leave below. If you haven't already, click subscribe. I appreciate the support. It means a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Oh, what about this guy? Bonk. How's that for an update?